So, Akash, can you tell our audience a little bit about you and your role in developing AI ML capabilities here at UserTesting?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the VP of Engineering here at UserTesting. I've been around at UserTesting for about roughly around 8 months or so. And one of the things that I lead is the AI and the machine learning team. And in my background and history, I've been doing software development for a long time, over a couple of decades, and machine learning itself for, I think, roughly about 6 or 7 years now.
So Akash, in your opinion, what's different about the state of AI today?
Yeah, so Kelsey, I think what's really different this time around in this big step change of AI with LLMs and generative AI is that we're at a point where NLP models can really understand language, and they can actually reply back to questions that you ask the model. And that's really a huge change, and they can do this without you as a customer needing the same resources that OpenAI or Google have when they train the models. And that really enables a lot of people to use machine learning and to use the power of LLMs that they couldn't in the past. So I think that's sort of the one of the big things that we're going through right now, and everybody's really excited about.
Yeah, that is hugely exciting and a complete game changer for a lot of us. So now I'm wondering, what are some of the potential applications for these LLMs in the context of UX research specifically?
So the most obvious use case is to summarize text, right? That's kind of the first thing you think about when you think about GPT or LLMs. But I think we think about it a little bit more than that. We try to think about what are the problems we're trying to solve for our customers, and what's the best machine learning or even non-machine learning approach to solve those problems. So while summarization makes a lot of sense, we also collect data that's not always text, or that's in other maybe more structured. And so we do want to bring kind of the same level of summarization and capabilities to other data types. That's kind of another thing that another use case we think about. And then it's trying to use the power of LLMs in the entire development cycle. So it's not just when you're analyzing the results, but you can think about you as a researcher coming up to our platform and describing the type of test you want to run, and the system with an LLM behind it kind of interprets what you're saying and recommends a template, or even generates the entire test, and then asks you what kind of audience you want, and tries and goes ahead and figures out who the right audience is, and then runs the entire test for you. And so that would be another place where we're kind of changing the paradigm of how you interact with the system, and try to make it sort of more powerful and also more usable.
So could you help us understand the pros and cons of training or tuning a model in-house versus using something like GPT? What makes one option better than the other?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. It's something that we've been thinking about at user testing for a long time. And actually, any problem we try to solve, we always think about, hey, is there something out there that we can leverage, that whose strengths match something that we're trying to address, and you'll never find a perfect fit. So what do we have to build around it? And is it a collection of models that we need? Is it models plus some code? And what's the right combination there? And with LLMs, I think the question of parsing text and understanding what users are trying to say, I think that we can just rely on the LLMs to do a really good job of. But because they're not trained on some domain specific problems that we might want to solve, we try to now either put in other code that we might need, that's non-model code, or we this is where we want to inject other models, and maybe even classic analytics processing that would try to do things like correlations and aggregations on different insights, and to find more interesting insights for researchers. And so we think about sort of this intermediate layer of where there's other types of models and other types of processing that's needed. And then there's the output summarization side, or depending on how you want the output. I mean, if you want the output to be a graph, then obviously it's not an LLM. But if you want the output to be a bulleted list, then again we could go back to LLMs and kind of format outputs over there.
I'm wondering now, we have all of this technology that companies can leverage now that they really never could before, the GPT-4 API is available and companies can use it and start building it into their solutions. But how do we start actually creating solutions that give us a competitive advantage when, now everybody has access to these same building blocks?
Yeah, I think you have to think about these building blocks literally. I think, as you said, Kelsey, they're just building blocks. They're not end-to-end solutions. And but what do you have that's your competitive advantage? I think there are at least two things. At user testing, we have a lot of data that we've collected over the last so many years that the company has been around, and that's this huge, rich data set. A lot of that data has actually been annotated by our customers as well. So there's kind of annotations on that data set that are extremely valuable. And secondly, we have a lot of domain knowledge in this field in the area of the problems that we are trying to solve. And so putting these two things together, we can address the problems that researchers actually face.
Could you speak to how the user testing team is tackling ML development right now and what's special about the user testing approach?
Yeah, so user testing has been doing machine learning for several years. This is not something new. I mean, we have a dedicated machine learning team. It's been around for a long time. We've got a dedicated team towards just data processing. That's been around for a long time as well. So we've been evolving with different methodologies and different approaches as the industry moves forward. And so we've been taking them and I think we do a combination. We look at what's out there, what's open source, again, as building blocks, what can we use? We'll look at certain cases where an approach that's out there might actually solve your entire problem in itself. So, for example, speech to text. We do not build our own models for speech to text. We rely on third parties for this because we think that the solutions are now at a point where we do not have to build our own models for them. We can see that problem is solved, and we can look at the next level of problems, right? And so we are looking at how do we extract insights, and how do we find the next level of higher insights by doing correlations, by doing aggregations. We're looking at the whole search problem. How do we find interesting things in the data that are surprising and unexpected? When you as a researcher are interested in knowing, it may not have been a question you originally were asking, but there was something in the data that kind of was a pattern that actually was surprising to you, and you should have known about it. And so trying to use machine learning and LLMs to find these patterns in the data, I think that's another area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that culture of innovation and experimentation is just, I mean, it's absolutely key to building a great product, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
So, um, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or suggestions for our audience?
I think the world is going to get more and more exciting with AI. Like I said, it's in its infancy. I think we always care about how our UX researchers are going to be successful, and I think as our customers look outside and see fancy demos, I would always ask like a few questions. I would like to know, or always ask and try to find out, is it just a fancy demo, or does it always work? Everybody can do fancy demos with AI, but the real hard question is, does it work for all the cases that you care about, and where does it not work? And have are you caring about data privacy, and are you caring about all the other considerations that you have?
Thank you so much for joining us today. Come back next week when we'll explore all things AI on Insights Unlocked.
Thanks, Kelsey.